George Russell took the checkered flag first in the Chinese Grand Prix sprint. Right behind him in second place was Charles Leclerc, 0.674 seconds behind. Third place went to Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari ended the sprint race second and third in a Formula One sprint event, separated by under 3 seconds between both cars against a Mercedes team that has controlled every qualifying session of the 2026 season. That outcome tells you something significant. So does everything that unfolded around it. Because the complete picture of Ferrari's Chinese Grand Prix weekend is not a straightforward narrative of improvement or disappointment. It is the story of a team that has now openly recognized exactly what Mercedes are doing differently and exactly how uncomfortable that realization becomes when you still cannot completely solve it. Leclerc finishing second in the sprint is the headline result, but the circumstances surrounding that finish matter just as much as the result itself. Ferrari entered the sprint weekend after removing the Macarena wing from both cars before sprint qualifying on Friday. A reliability issue, Hamilton confirmed, with the wing not yet strong enough to last an entire race weekend. They used their standard Melbourne spec rear wing during every competitive session. Even without it, even with a known straight line disadvantage, Leclerc chased Russell in the final laps of the sprint and finished under 7/10 behind. Hamilton finished third, 2.5 seconds back, after running a different race strategy that protected him against the undercut. The sprint outcome confirms what Ferrari's race pace data had already indicated after Melbourne. When energy demands are distributed across a full stint rather than concentrated into one explosive qualifying lap, the SF26 is a legitimately quick car. The issue is not the chassis. The issue is not the tires. The problem exists within the power unit, and it becomes most obvious in qualifying conditions when Mercedes achieve a level of electrical deployment Ferrari cannot currently equal. That is the advantage Ferrari have just revealed. Not a brand new discovery, but the first moment when data from an actual race weekend has confirmed it loudly enough for the entire paddock to recognize. Hamilton described it after sprint qualifying with the accuracy only someone who has driven both cars could offer. It seems mostly on the straights. Everywhere on the straights. But it seems more so when they open up straight mode. That is when they take a huge step. The 2026 regulations replace DRS with a full active aerodynamic system. When drivers activate straight mode, the front and rear wing flaps flatten at the same time, cutting drag and allowing much higher straight line speeds. Every team has this system. Every team activates it at the same sections of the track. The difference is what happens in the car in the milliseconds after that wing open. Mercedes reaches the straight with more battery charge than their competitor. When straight mode activates, they can maintain full MGUK deployment for longer and they derate, meaning lose electrical power at the end of the straight, far less than Ferrari, McLaren, or anyone else. The result is a car that maintains its speed deep into the braking zone while the competition is already losing velocity even with their foot fully on the throttle. Hamilton also added another detail that goes even deeper. They seem to have a little bit more deployment, he said. Less derating at the end of the straights than some of us. This is not a hardware gap in the traditional sense. Mercedes and their customer teams, McLaren, Williams, and Alpine, all run the same physical engine. Yet McLaren qualified almost 9/10 behind the Mercedes factory team in Melbourne despite sharing identical hardware. The difference lies in software calibration and the accumulated knowledge of how to run the 2026 power unit at its absolute limit. Mercedes began developing their understanding of this system earlier than everyone else. Hamilton confirmed it directly. It is something we were conscious of last year. Mercedes started earlier than the rest. They have done a fantastic job. Sunday qualifying produced the same pattern. The 2026 season has shown every time the cars have been pushed to their single lap limit. Kimi Antonelli secured pole position with a 1 minute 32.064. George Russell qualified second, 0.222 seconds behind. Then Hamilton in third, 0.351 off pole. Leclerc in fourth, 0.364 back, separated from his teammate by only 0.013 seconds. Mercedes occupied the entire front row. Ferrari occupied the entire second row. That gap from the front row to the second row, 0.35 seconds, is smaller than Melbourne's 0.8 second qualifying deficit. Progress? Yes, but the type of progress matters. The gap still exists almost entirely on the straights. Ferrari's chassis through the technical sections of Shanghai was competitive. Their cornering speed in the mixed sectors was strong. The lost time is concentrated in the same location it has been since Bahrain testing, the moments when straight mode opens and Mercedes' power unit achieves a level of deployment Ferrari cannot replicate. Leclerc was clear about it after qualifying. In qualifying, Mercedes still seems a step ahead. For some reason, their power unit finds a lot of lap time there. But in the race, we are closer. That last sentence is the most important because Sunday's race is where Ferrari believe their real competitive position appears, and the sprint result already gave a preview of what that might look like. The Macarena wing appeared for one session and was removed before sprint qualifying. Hamilton described it as premature, originally not intended to appear until race 4 or 5. Ferrari rushed it to Shanghai to collect data, got what they needed from practice, and removed it before it could fail on track during a competitive session. That decision reveals something about how Ferrari are currently operating. They are not chasing a single dramatic upgrade that solves everything. They are collecting data carefully, race by race, session by session, and feeding it back to Maranello as quickly as the factory can process it. The more important update this weekend was invisible from the outside. Ferrari introduced a new MGUK software package aimed at improving energy recovery in medium and high-speed corners, exactly the part of the lap where Melbourne's data showed the battery draining before the straights began. The objective is to reach each straight with more charge, maintain deployment for longer, and reduce the derating phase that gives Mercedes their qualifying advantage. This strategy carries risk. Earlier versions of similar software in Bahrain made the car feel nervous and unpredictable through fast corners, with micro-instability drivers had to manage through setup adjustments. Ferrari's simulation team rebuilt those algorithms using Shanghai's real-world data instead of modeling estimates. The balance between energy efficiency and car stability has not vanished, but Ferrari are managing it more carefully now than they were 2 weeks ago. 2 races into the 2026 season, the competitive picture is clearer than it was after Melbourne and more complex than the qualifying results suggest. Mercedes possessed the fastest car over a single lap. Their power unit software advantage, combined with a chassis that generates compounding energy benefits through faster corners, provides them with a qualifying edge Ferrari cannot yet defeat. That advantage is structural, built over years of earlier development work, and it will not disappear with a single software update. But the sprint race in Shanghai added a piece of data that changes how you interpret the rest of the season. Leclerc finished 0.674 seconds behind Russell after 19 laps of racing. Hamilton finished third. Ferrari scored more sprint points than Mercedes. In race conditions, the energy management gap narrows considerably because maintaining a pace advantage across a full stint is a fundamentally different challenge than